time.
Yes, we're switching gears over to our main topic, which is the Pope's Exorcist exit survey. I don't know if you could hear the audio, but that is my favorite church song going back from Catholic high school is Our God is an awesome God.
That's what that was. I could not make that out.
Yeah, that's just too bad. But it's church music nonetheless. One more time for the people.
Oh, that had a different is cadence the right word in that case?
Yeah, this one was definitely more produced than what I remember.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was
a lot of production value poured into that song.
Yeah, but the tone, I'm used to it being moving at a different beat. Maybe is what is the better way to put it. But
yeah. Well, this is at the end of the chorus and not the beginning of it.
So okay,
Our
maybe that's
God
fine.
is an awesome
that's
God.
What I'm used to.
And then it picks up, and then our God is an awesome God, and then it's
been too long. All right, so I still have the honors of synopsis because Wes refuses to put out polls, and I'm not going to help him. So all right, follow Gabriel Amorth, the Vatican's leading exorcist, as he investigates the possession of a child and uncovers a conspiracy the Vatican has tried to keep secret.
All right, this was written by Michael Petroni and Evan Spilotopoulos and R. Dean McCreary. That's the Irish name I screw up. Great. Directed by Julius Avery, starring Russell Crowe as Father Gabriel Amorth, Daniel Zavato as Father Esquibel, Alex Esso as Julia, Franco Nero as the Pope. That's a strong name. Franco Nero. I like that. Peter D'Souza Feoni as Henry, Laurel Marsden as Amy, Cornell John as Bishop Lumumba. John is an interesting last name.
Oh yeah, huh.
I was like waiting to finish that, like in my mind. I was like Cornell John Smith. Just waiting for something else. It just left me hanging. But last but not least, Ryan O'Grady as Cardinal Sullivan.
As for the box office and critics' reception, this hauled in $66 million worldwide, with $19 million domestic, including $9 million in its opening weekend. It's got a 6.1 out of 10 on IMDb, a 51-81 split on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 37.5 on Google reviews, with 91% of Google users liking this movie. And Wes, before you give your score and tweet length review, I gotta say, I feel like all those numbers make sense to me.
Yeah, I'm getting more confused. I'm getting the yips now with Google users. That percentage there, 91%. I just don't understand, because I think that's less than Guardians or one of the movies that we reviewed recently. And I was like, oh, remember we were like, oh, it's like 88 is the threshold for a good movie, and then it's like, I think Guardians Volume 1 or 2, like they both weren't.
Let's see. I am trying to find them real quick for us.
But yeah. At any rate, so I'm just in a box here. I'm in my own head with it. But nevertheless, while Nick's finding that out, my score and tweet length review, give it an 80 out of 100. Solid movie. This is a solid at-home thriller / horror movie. Love Russell Crowe. I think his charisma stands out in an otherwise, pretty boilerplate movie. But I would have liked a little more demon and church history. But they do a good job of peppering it in.
So just to follow back on all this stuff that we're just talking about, the original Guardians of the Galaxy, 88% of Google users liked that movie.
Yeah.
And then 87% liked Volume 2.
Yeah, see, I don't know. See, I maybe we should just throw that out. Maybe Google users don't know what they're using.
Yeah, I mean, well, the other thing is, when did that start becoming a thing? Because that could be part of why those numbers are a little bit lower, because people who think positively going to care enough to go back. So,
well, yeah, because you wouldn't think a movie that is under 4.5 on Google reviews would be liked by 91% of Google users,
Right. Yeah. I don't know. But one thing that we both should note, we watched this at home. We purchased it on Prime.
Yes.
So
$20, $19.99.
Yeah, which actually, before I get into my score, brings up something that we were talking about beforehand. It's like, again, an idea that we came up with together, and it's like, why are the people who are in charge not coming up with this shit? I mean, this would be like you're not offering this is almost kind of like a disservice to people. So We had the option of either renting or buying this, and it was the same
Mm-hmm.
cost, whether it was an Ultra HD, or standard. It was $19.99 to rent, $24.99 to purchase. But you have to make the decision going in. What you don't know this movie, especially this one where it's a new release, you do not know. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I asked Lauren because she's not going to watch it with me. Do you want to? Are you going to want to watch it later? And she said, no, she's not interested. All right, fine. So then I guess I'm not gonna buy it. I'll just rent it, and then because I don't know if I'm gonna like it or
Mm-hmm.
not. Going, and I didn't look at your notes. You'd seen it before me, and then I watched it. I was like, I do like this, and maybe I would have bought it for the extra $5 just because to have it. But it's like I don't have that option to go back afterwards to spend the extra $5. I have to spend the full $24.99.
Jeff Bezos, fix this now. Fix this. Amazon support. We need to do something here because that just makes so much sense, Nick. Even like you shouldn't even have to pay the extra $5 for it. You already paid the $19.99. Like, did you like this movie? Great. Buy it for another $2, $2.50. Cut it in half of what you would have done, and then you're getting it there on the back end too. But to charge the full price to buy the movie after you rent it is just it's hogwash.
Yeah,
Capitalistic hogwash.
I just don't. And who's going to do that? I mean, maybe there's enough people that go and say, I really liked it. Now I got to own it. I mean, to that end, I'd say just go buy the DVD at that point or something. Because I know it's everybody does digital now, but I just wouldn't want to give that extra money to Amazon. It's just kind of annoying. But
you've seen Jeff Bezos lately?
no.
Oh man, he's looking good. That's why he needs all the extra payments here for the $24.99 buying. He needs the top of the line HGH. TRT. He's ripped. He's looking good. If you look at him from like when he started Amazon to where he is now, like he was just like a skinny like pencil neck dork, and now he's like a ripped guy who has a penis for a head.
So you're saying he went from Lex Luthor Jr. to Lex Luthor Sr.?
Yeah, you could even say the same for Mark Zuckerberg. There was like photos of him surfacing recently of like competing and winning a Brazilian jiu-jitsu tournament.
Oh, well then, okay. Must be nice
the tweets that I saw said that he won like a gold and a silver or something in his competition. However, I'm very weary of any multi-billionaire with the reach that he has, maybe not putting a little extra weight on the referees there to ensure that he wins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, either way, I mean, having that kind of time to get to that point is
it's good though. Yeah,
good
for him.
Sure. Sure. Anyways, my score for this is an 84 out of 100. So Wes and I are per usual in the same neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Russell Crowe was great. Peter D'Souza Fignoni was horrifyingly terrific. The whole movie haunting throughout, but particularly scary towards the end until the final part of the exorcism, which we'll get into a little bit later.
Speaking of prosthetics, Henry had some good prosthetics on there.
Dude, he got fucking weird. I wasn't ready for that. He was freaky as things were going on. And he kind of just has like an odd look, especially what they do with his hair and everything.
And he had like the dead eye stare with like the big bags. Like he looked like he wasn't sleeping or anything,
Yeah, but by the time we get to the very end, like the last like effort, it's like, what the fuck happened?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he goes full on possessed here. So let's dive into the exit survey. Let's start off with a softball. Nick, are you interested or intrigued by stories of the Catholic Church?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that's been like hidden over the years, and there's so much like other stuff that's going on. Whether like, I will say, I'd like to know if it's like real or fiction going in. Like believed to be. But yeah, that kind of like the historical stuff. I think I have an interest in history to begin with. And this is like one of the oldest institutions in the world, if not the oldest institution in the world. So,
and as like much of an open book as the Catholic Church is, no pun intended, there is like a ton of secrecy there. They have all these books. You can go to every church, you can speak to a priest, and they can give you the whole history of it. You can take an ecclesiology class in high school, and all this stuff, right? But there's like still the inner workings of the church. So much gets lost. So much is tucked away in the Vatican. There's all like compartmentalization, right? Like I'm sure your local pastor, your local priest doesn't know the inner workings like the archdiocese does, and the archdiocese doesn't know as much of the inner workings as those who are actually inside the Vatican. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So there's all this like compartmentalization. So there's like the whole thing is like shrouded in secrecy despite being out in plain sight.
Yep, it is.
So I find it massively intriguing. I love it, and it's even like we're talking about like the Eucharist and all the different stipulations for it and everything. Going to Catholic school at the time of Harry Potter, because I was reading the Wikipedia page,
Yeah.
and the real Gabriel Amorth like said anyone who reads Harry Potter is demonic, or that's demonic. I think he also said yoga was as well. So yeah, he's a hardcore Catholic because it's going into Hinduism. I think correct me if I'm wrong. They might believe in multiple gods.
No, you're right.
So then it goes off like that. So but so yeah, very very devout Christian man, as you would expect, Catholic man, as the Pope's exorcist. But at the time I was going to high school was the height of the Harry Potter books, as well as the Dan Brown books. There, what am I? The Da Vinci Code.
Yep.
And it's just so the school was in a pretzel of what to do. Like
Really?
do we pay attention and give this like any sort of credit? Like, oh yeah, this is a threat to our institution, or do we say something about it? It's like none of the teachers knew what to really talk about. And then you have these great books that maybe the English teachers want to like share with their kids. Like these are great books to get involved with and read and stuff like that, but they can't even really endorse it.
I didn't know until honestly, like fairly recently, about all the Harry Potter like craziness that happened when we were younger because of those because
Oh
of religion
yeah,
and everything, and it was just like absolutely mind blowing to me, the responses. But I will say that Gabriel Amorth, he ended up walking it back a little bit later, I guess, like in a New York
on the
Times.
Harry Potter.
Yeah, like in a New
Yeah,
York Times interview, he said like if they can go see the movie with like their parents, I guess it's not that bad or whatever. So okay, but I will say of the two, I would expect like the church to have more of an issue with the Da Vinci Code. Like
absolutely.
I
Yeah,
can I can understand that. Like as much as I'm still like, hey, it's fiction or whatever. Like it feels very real. Harry Potter, it's like, dude, we're talking like I just what are you talking about?
yeah,
Come on.
and the way that it was written was in a nonfiction type of way.
Yeah.
Like the book,
Yes.
the way that it was kind of presented, there was a storyline and everything to it, but it all felt very real. And I remember there was like discussions about that, but you're like, is this really real? And again, it's like taking down the church entirely. Harry Potter is just kind of operating in its own witch world, like,
Yeah.
but this is like, no, Jesus and Mary Magdalene, there's a whole bloodline and everything
Yes.
like that, right? Yeah.
Yes, and I mean, and like Preacher does stuff with like Jesus having a bloodline and everything like that too. One of the
Hmm.
best comics ever, and it was a show for a while. But like,
Or
there's
Indiana Jones, the
uh
Holy Grail.
oh yep, but well they have it's the actual Holy Grail. It's not like it's
Yeah,
not a person.
yeah.
But what was I gonna say? But with at least what I will say is like Da Vinci Code felt real, and maybe it's because like the veil was pulled down after I'd like read it and seen it, but I didn't have that same feeling with Angels and Demons. Like I watched it, like this is
Yeah.
just a really good fictional story that feels like it could happen in our world. But I'm not sure. But it was but like I really enjoy that one too. I think there was a third book too, but I never
I
read
think you're
it.
right, but I didn't get to that one that far along either. I was already moved.
Anyways.
The hype train had moved on.
Mhm.
Yeah. So both intrigued, interested, love it. Okay. Was this movie more of a thriller or a horror movie?
Okay, I'm curious your thoughts here because I say horror because like this felt real in a sense of like how it wasn't nonstop action at all times. Yes, it got freaky, it got crazy, and there were certain things like when the head twisting around and some of that stuff. Like, okay, that's probably not happening. But some of the other parts of it where I think there is like truth to some of this stuff, like there are like the exorcisms and things like that. That's been
Hmm.
around for a bit. It felt like some of it was I don't want to say grounded enough, but not sensationalized enough. Like Henry felt like real. Like that performance was amazing, and that's
Yeah,
what.
absolutely.
And then obviously with horror too, it's like with the jarring stuff we see with the kid and some of the other like body horror. So yeah, like it felt like not as sensationalized, but it felt like more of a real horror in some ways to me, I guess.
Yeah, and I would defer to you on this. I feel like you're the more well versed in horror movies than I am here. So I kind of view this as like a thriller with horror elements. My view on horror is like Freddy Krueger, Scream,
Mm,
Nightmare on Elm Street, Jason, all that kind of stuff, right? Like
mm,
where it's just like gore, even like the Saw movies or Hostel, where it's like gore and violence for the sake of violence, and the storyline is really just a device to get you to the next action scene. And this felt like it had more, again, of a stronger storyline there, with the Exorcist possession, elements and horror elements there, peppered in. But yeah, I would defer to you on that.
and I appreciate that. I'm not gonna go and claim to be, hashtag dork in terms of
No,
like horror
more than I
fandom,
am.
but like
No.
I've definitely I've always had like interest in it, but it always freaked me the fuck out. But somebody helped get me over that hump, and now I think there's no turning back. But like, yeah, there's especially when you look at the Conjuring stuff, there's like a lot of freaky shit that happens, but there's a story in there, so it's just a different type of horror. Right? And I think, and it's fair that like what you think of horror, you think of gore. I think a lot of people do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, what was the most? Let's dive in. What was the most rewatchable scene that you found here?
I mean, everything with Henry to me
Hmm.
was amazing. I mean, when he like right when he first gets possessed and they send the other priest in, he throws him out and it's like rogue fucking priest. I'm like,
Hmm.
what the fuck? This thing is nuts. Oh my god.
I think the one that, I mean, that one definitely stood out. But when he says, "I'm gonna fuck you," and then when you
Bro.
come, you're gonna feel shame for it. When I'm, like I'm like, oh my god, and to hear it, like,
Yeah.
from the little kid, in such like a demonic way is scary. But like, I couldn't help when I'm watching this, and I agree. I thought every scene when Henry was kind of like, the tent pole,
Mm,
of the movie there. But anytime that you saw like that, the possession, whether it was him or in the opening scenes there, or even when the daughter, the sister gets possessed there a little bit as well, I couldn't help but think of like, in Father Amorth is talking about it when he talks about exorcism, but relating it to detoxing from like drugs or like heroin
mm,
or anything like that. I couldn't, because you're you know all the life is sucked out of your face. You're sweaty, your palms are shaking, and then like you're looking to get that next fix as you're withdrawing, right? And it's
mm.
all, you're feeling the worst pain ever, so you're willing to say anything at the last time. And I couldn't help but think like, if you weren't, if you don't believe in heaven and hell and exorcisms and demons and possession and all of that, like that would be the closest thing that you could depict to it, right? In my
Yeah.
imagination.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very fair way to kind of to get it across. Yeah, 100%. Um Yeah. And then obviously they talked a lot about the mental illness stuff, and that kind of goes into one of the things that you found were watchable, and I'll let you get to that in a second. But when Father Gabriel sat down with that panel, as we're getting to know him, in the
Hmm.
early going, and then he just tells that Father Sullivan basically to piss off. I love that, like, and I think that's part of the
Yeah.
trailer too. Which I know we say it's not ideal to have that be one of the best scenes, but I really like that a lot. And look, there's a lot of stuff with Henry in this movie. So when I say most rewatchable scene, like there's just so much good with that kid. But yeah, like Father Gabriel like his basically saying like I answered like the Pope. If you got a problem with my boss, like talk to him. I mean, we need to talk to my boss.
Oh yeah, and even how he says like, "Oh, he's not possessed. I just played a little trick to mind to he was mentally ill, so I just had to play a little trick on him, and then it was a little psychology trick or
Yeah, and
something he says, right?
that was great. It's like,
Just
and
like
I suspected that when
snappy.
when I saw the first scene, but it's like that's kind of what you should hope for. By the way, the priest who asked him for help and then was there and ratted him out. What a bastard that guy is.
Yeah, yeah, and that apparently was something that did happen to a degree,
Oh,
in there. I think that's that opening scene in the countryside. I think while I was reading that, and actually some of your
oh, that
notes
yeah,
actually,
yes, the
yeah.
the countryside part did. Yes, 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 yes. But we don't want to. I don't want to jump ahead.
Not the exact details of it, right? But that was probably, I think that was a great opening scene, a great way to open the movie. I'd rewatch that a bunch of times, and again, just his confidence, when he's holding out. I don't know if it's Saint Augustine, the medallion that he's holding out there.
Mm.
Um,
Oh,
but one, so it immediately gets the eyes, the attention, the focus of the demon in there, and then he just like slick talks him. He just
hmm.
he just used street talk and just kind of like feeds into the ego. He's like, I bet you can't get into the pig, and then he just shoots the pig. Like, I was like, all right, we're on the right track here to open up a movie.
Yes, yeah, that was yeah. But they blew that pig's head away. But with the medallion too, Wes. Like I didn't find anything on this, like, in terms of, like, true and not true about the movie, but, like, that was something that I thought was really good, was how they were talking about the exorcisms, but we'll get to that a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else you had for watching?
Yeah, and just when both Father Escobar and Father Gabriel go down to the Abbey catacombs there to uncover the demon graves and
Yeah.
the possessed exorcist that was
Mhm.
down there. All that stuff was really interesting, kind of finding that out. And it's like, oh, there's so much gas and sulfur here, and it's like a pathway to hell. Like, I don't know, that's
Mhm.
supernatural stuff. I wish they kind of went into that like a little bit more.
Mm. There it was I well, that I think that kinda goes into, like, the problem that I think that I have with this movie, and I think you feel pretty similarly about, because we look at what was true about this movie, because it's based on a real exorcist. Is like
Hmm.
he started like a group for like exorcists, with a priest from like France, like in 1990 or something like that. I saw that in this. So this article, History versus Hollywood, is a website that does this like compare and contrast and does all this research. I thought it
I
was
like
great.
it.
Yeah,
That's cool. It's a
it was
great site.
right. Yeah, so definitely going to look into that more whenever we have situations like this. But basically, what I got from their research, and we'll go through some of the details, but they just did like what The Conjuring did, where they take these real people, it's real person in this case, and then we create a fictional story around them. Like now, The Conjuring has some more truth to it, but
Hmm.
this sounds like it was a complete fabrication, Wes. Other than, as you alluded to earlier, that first like Italian village scene, which was I guess surrounding a case called Roberto, like some dude who was like faking it, and they used a
Yeah.
pig to get him to. So I couldn't believe though, as we saw some of these things. I don't know if you want to go through some of these details you want me to highlight.
Yeah, yeah. Highlight some of them here, and will say though, I just have the Wikipedia page. The Father Amorth, he wrote a couple of books,
Yep.
so he has a bunch of books. But the first one is An Exorcist Tells a Story in 1990, and An Exorcist More Stories in 1992. I think he has a couple, but those were what the movie was kind of based around. Those and they're memoirs, so it's important to note that they're memoirs and the difference between that and an
Mm.
autobiography or a biography.
Yep.
That's written by the author from their own memories, so there's a lot of like leeway about what's true, and you can
Sure.
kind of like shape things and everything too. So that all kind of comes into it. But on his Wikipedia page, he says that he's performed more than 50,000 exorcisms, which range from quote a few minutes to several hours in length. By March 2020, 2010, he said the number had increased to 70,000. Then by 2013, he said he had performed 160,000 exorcisms in the course of his ministry.
Wow.
So he says each exorcism does not represent a victim possession, but rather each exorcism is counted as a prayer or ritual alone. And some possession victims require hundreds of exorcisms. So again, a little bit of a workaround there, but
Yeah. The math, I don't even know where to begin with the math, but whatever. But like the one thing I will say about this movie that really what made me enjoy it so much is the way that Father Gabriel explains how the exorcisms work,
Mhm.
like his process and everything. And I didn't see anything about that in the History versus Hollywood like breakdown of this. But that was the thing that sold me the most, was like they do a really good job of like giving us details, because like I've seen plenty, the exorcism stuff with like Exorcism of Emily Rose, or then Constantine obviously does exorcisms.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I find this particular thing very, very interesting. And obviously with the Conjuring stuff too. I just like always curious, like what's the details? What is actually believed to be this like the process of going through things?
And again, this is why I think the movie's so interesting. Why I find like religion, the Catholic Church, to be really interesting, because it's a thing that's out there that we can research about, but there is like so much, it's so much shrouded in history, and how much has been, um, you know, punched up by Hollywood or
Right.
exaggerated by the people who are doing, because we're not there to see it, so like, you're kind of just at the mercy of the people who are telling the story.
Hmm.
But nevertheless, like if this is real and there are real exorcists who are employed by the Catholic Church, then like, yeah, I want to know what this is, right? That it
Yeah.
goes into the greatest question that everyone has, is like what happens after Earth, after life, you know?
Yep, it is. Yeah, it does. So a couple things to highlight that again from the History versus Hollywood article. So talked about the Roberto case, which is basically what inspired the Italian like the Italian village scene that we get off the rip. The girl Rosaria, her death was loosely inspired by Vatican. The
Mm-hmm.
girl, the
Mm-hmm.
disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi, but she didn't. She just disappeared. She did not die. I mean, at least as far as we know, she did not die in the way that this girl did, but like the abuse that she underwent
Mm-hmm.
in the Vatican, that's the similar thing. Gabriel did fight in World War II, so at least he doesn't have stolen valor. Um,
But just on that note, though, with Henry knowing all of those, or Amadeus, I think is the
I believe
demon's
so.
name.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, as with everything that he knew there, that has to be the worst. If you're in there with everybody and he's just saying like you're sleeping around and you're a coward and all this stuff, and like you let these people die, and like it's a crazy thing.
Yeah, it is. It was
Like
like it was.
imagine being in there and you're just like, ah shit, my deepest, darkest secrets
Mhm.
are all coming out right now.
And again, another great detail that they established is like you can't know stuff like that you've confessed for already and you've been forgiven of.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can't
Yeah.
forgive yourself, then like you're still kind of open to fair game. Like so, these details are great and they feel real. If this was like a fictional movie completely, I don't know if I would have given it a greater grade, and we'll get into that a little bit why later. But it's just I'm left with like a bit of a bad taste in my mouth because like it's just I don't know what's real.
Well, I think the way that I kind of came around it was that a lot of these ideas, and maybe like the general ideas are true. Like you said, the Rosario's disappearance, the Abbey, there that is a real place, even though it has nothing. It wasn't really haunted or anything like that. But there was, really a Pope's exorcist, all this kind of stuff. So I think there's, some truth in it. It's just all kind of warped around into one story.
Right. It was not actually did not actually exist. Was the Abbey of San Sebastian, which is the setting for this entire story. There is, and now according to the article, there is an abbey with a similar name in the region, the Abbey of Santo Domingo de
Mm-hmm.
Silos, which is called San Sebastian de Silos during the 10th century. But that structure has a cloister and central courtyard. Last couple things, West, this was really cool, and I was like, if this is real, like this is actually like a believed thing. This would have been the coolest thing. It would have been good, but it would have been just like a very interesting thing to be true. The explanation for how the Spanish Inquisition began does not line up with perspectives of historians. So
And that does that mean in the sense of like the guy was possessed and
yeah,
then
he was
the
not.
devil did the work? Yeah.
No,
Oh yeah, yeah. But that's what I think is one of the things that'll age the best. Is a little spoiler alert. Is like that hit that fictional retelling of history through the eyes of the Catholic Church. Like, obviously this could be considered trying to rewrite history in a bit and paint it in a more favorable light. But
mm,
to be able to be like, all right, the church did so many bad things, and this was because they were actually possessed by a demon within the church or worked away. I think that's a very interesting comment. And while it's not true, like I was just saying, maybe there's ideas that could be taken from this. And there was a somewhere where did I have this here? I had some note. Where was his quote?
I'm not
Where
sure.
was it?
I didn't. I don't remember seeing it anywhere.
Oh, okay. When asked whether this is on his Wikipedia page, when asked whether the devil can strike inside the Vatican City, Amorth stated he has tried already. He did it in 1981 by attacking John Paul II by working with those who armed Ali Aga. So it's interesting. So it's like that sort of thing, like
Mm,
the devil kind of coming in and seeding, trying to break the Vatican and the church from within.
yeah.
So those ideas, may have persisted, or at least, within the church, those are like maybe some beliefs that they have, and then they were able to incorporate them into the movie.
Yeah, and again, like it's a really cool thing. And if I know going in, this is like a complete work of fiction, that's great. That's cool. Like it's an interesting, smart writing decision. It still is, but it's just like again, why are we centering it around this real guy and not using more real stuff?
I
Because
know.
again, they not only is that structure not real. Okay, we're thinking, well, maybe some of the stuff was with Henry was real. Like maybe it was this kid was possessed and blah blah blah, but it wasn't to that magnitude. No, Henry's not even based on a real life case. Like,
That's the cherry on top. That's the main character. Or at least,
very the lead.
if you are gonna use, again, like you said, Gabriel Morth, maybe use his like biggest, most known case, right? Or something that kind of stands. Again, the guy's says he's performed 130,000 exorcisms. That's
Mhm.
maybe there's one that you can find that would be actually interesting to use. So
Yep.
interesting. But the demon Osmodeus, Asmodeus.
Asmodeus. Yep.
We got a little bit about him because I thought he was interesting. He pops up, if you look at his Wikipedia page, all throughout different religions and different points in time. So I think
Huh.
that's pretty interesting. But he's most associated as the Prince of Hell and associated with lust. So let me see if I got anything up here.
Mm.
Um, in Judeo-Islamic lore, he is the king of both daemons and demons. Asmodeus is most known as the Deuterocanonical Book of Tobit, in which he is the primary antagonist. And Peter Binsfield's classification of demons, he represents lust. The demon is also mentioned in the Talmudic legends, the Talmud, which I think is like the Old Testament of the Jewish religion, that the Old Testament equivalent.
Oh.
For instance, in the story of the construction of the Temple of Solomon, in Islam, he is identified with the puppet mentioned in the Quran, which dethroned Solomon and reigned over the kingdom until he got his kingship back. And I think in the story in the Temple of Solomon, King Solomon enlists Asmodeus to help kind of build up his temple there too. So
Hmm.
again, across the Quran, the Talmud, and the Bible as well. So he's well represented in all the fathers of religion.
Hmm. It's almost like
Interesting.
it's all the same thing.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, exactly. Right. It
Hmm.
all started somewhere there.
I will say I'm
Um,
interested in reading these, like getting my hands on these books. I don't have I struggle with prose because my mind tends to wander, but I do think at some point I want to check. Was it An Exorcist Tells a Story and
mhm.
An Exorcist More Story? So I obviously know where you're gonna start.
Yeah, and those are pretty simple titles too. They had good SEO writers even back then. That's good to know. What will age the best from this movie? I already mentioned it. Just the fictional spins on the Catholic Church's bad
Yeah,
history. I really liked that. I thought that worked well, particularly with the Spanish Inquisition. I was like, oh, that's kind of like an interesting retelling of it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
also the runtime. It was 75 minutes. You're in and out like a fiddler's elbow. It's great.
Yeah, I think you like the fictional spin, like yes and no. Like
Yeah.
and we can talk. I'll talk about that more after. But I do kind of agree with you. Yes, runtime. This didn't feel like it had any fat on it really. Like maybe there were like a
Hmm.
tiny lulls in it, but nothing that jumped out to my mind whatsoever. Henry to me is what's going to age the best from this movie. That kid did a great job. If they like more horror stuff for him or whatever, but he was really really good. And I enjoyed Father Gabriel. Like I feel like there's like when I started watching this, I was like, this has chance to there's going to be a sequel to this.
I think it already is in the works. I think the Wikipedia page said that. Yeah, so it's
There you
already
go.
going to happen. And I imagine with the comparisons that you were made to the Conjuring, I could see that definitely happening, right? And just you
Yeah.
have a whole franchise of different chapters in the Gabriel and Moore story. And Russell Crowe's great. He's chewing up the scenery. He's
A
doing
little
a
bit.
whole lot of work in this. And Henry's great as well. So I'm with you. But what will age the worst?
By the way, this had looks like this had an $18 million budget. So this has already been a huge
Oh,
success.
okay. All
Yeah.
right. I
Yeah.
bet half of that was to get Russell Crowe.
Probably. Well, age the worst from this movie. I mean, the biggest thing for me is how much of this was fake. Like, because it's again, I like it a lot. I think it's well done, but you're using a real person and then turning everything into like all of his stuff into fiction. Like he sold his stories like before he passed. I think he did it in 2015. So like he
Mhm.
knew like, he was fine sharing all this and getting it out there. I just don't understand how you don't base more in reality. And I'm not saying you can't sensationalize stuff. Like people, I know like the people's heads twisting when they're like when they're possessed and everything is like a played out thing and it doesn't happen
Yeah.
and whatever. Sure, that's fine. You can still do that in there, but just like use a real story. Like I don't know why you don't do that.
Yeah, no, I'm with him. That's what aged the worst. The head spinning to depict possession. I know that's again a nod, an allusion to The Exorcist and all that sort of thing. But You don't have to do that in every movie, right? So that happened when the demon went into Amy, right? His sister, Henry's sister, there for a minute. She kind of cranked her, or maybe it was the mother who
No, it was
cranked her
Amy.
head around. It
You're
was
right.
Amy. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, which I thought was cool that he was able to kind of possess two at once, kind of showing off his power.
Yeah. Oh, dude, that demon was nuts. Like and it was just right after he said, like, "Oh, like this, I've seen a demon before. It's like talk through three people at once." And then boom.
Yeah, and what'd you think of Russell Crowe's Italian?
You know what? I don't really know what like an Italian accent is like sounds like off the top of my head. So when I heard him, I was like, I don't know if this is good or bad. Like,
You ever heard Mario?
jeez, jeez. It's John Leguizamo, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just like, I don't know. Like, okay, it's not I can understand him for the most part, so we're fine.
Yeah, he was fine. I just felt like this was him just kind of chewing up the scenery a little bit. I just kind of would giggle throughout the times when he's like driving through the streets on his Vespa, like saying cuckoo to people. Cuckoo,
He did
cuckoo.
not own a scooter, by the way, according to that Hollywood
Oh,
versus
that's bullshit.
Universal
Now
Solid.
this movie's going down in grades. Yeah, you can't have that. Also, Cardinal Sullivan, he was a real twerp. I didn't
Yeah.
like him at all.
Yeah, he
Bad look for the young Irish.
I wonder if he's gonna be at the center of the next movie because he had
You
that
don't really
whole
know
experience.
what happens to him, right? What happened to him?
He just went on a sabbatical. That's
But
it.
what happened at the end? Did he get blood poured all over him? What?
I don't know if he got blood poured over him, but he was in the church that we kept seeing the Pope in, and he heard like a demon's voice, like speak to him.
That's right. That's what it was. Okay. Yeah. All right. This seems pretty consensus here. Who had the best performance by a side character? It's
I,
Henry.
it's not even an option. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, it's because it's. I feel weird saying Henry's a side character, but I mean, if it's not Henry, then maybe it's his like is it Amy? But even then, I
No,
don't know.
I didn't really like Amy. She was like emo for just for the sake of being emo. You know, like I didn't really get it. I know she wasn't happy to be in another country, but hey, you know,
Dad died.
you're in Spain or Italy, wherever they are. You know, go find some hot Spain or Italian ass.
Her dad also just died in the movie too, so there's that. Which
Well,
again,
yeah,
all the
and that's another question too. How does this guy have like a sacred church that was owned by the Vatican?
that is a you know what that is a great
I was like,
question.
who is this guy?
Yeah, when they first got there, I'm like, what? Why is this family here? And then it's like, oh, it was in his family's name. It's like, "Oh, wait, what? Huh?
Yeah, the startup time to introduce the family and the whole church. You can't really ask too many questions. They're just like driving right to Italy, and that's what I thought was kind of funny. Maybe this was kind of aging the worst because now that I think about it, is you have the opening scene of the really dark possession scene of killing the pig with the animal sacrifice and all that, and then it just plays into some nice like 80s like pop music, and it's them just driving along like a nice countryside road in Spain, and it's like a complete it's like a hard transition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I would I don't know, man. Let's ease into it a little bit.
Yeah, that was interesting. I really liked how he did that. They did that, by the way, the opening scene. I know we talked about it already, but
Yeah,
that was very
it
smart.
pulls you in, but I'm just saying. Then it just goes to like a hard contrast with the family getting introduced, and it's like a little too light. It's like when like news anchors are reporting on a story, and it's like, and then we had a 4-alarm fire where 5 people died. Coming up next, squirrels on water skates. And
Yeah.
it's like there's like no real thought to it. It's just a hard shift.
Yep. That's a fair way to put it.
But yeah, so that's kind of how it felt for me. Who lost the movie for you?
Who lost the movie? Where am I? Oh, I have the same ones as you. I don't want to. You're the one that run
Well,
first.
Cardinal Sullivan, he was again real twerp. He needs his comeuppance. He needs to spend some time in being possessed. Actually, that's kind of sad. Shouldn't say that. But the devil's a big loser here.
Yes, this is very true. I'm wondering if the devil made you just say that now about Cardinal Sullivan.
I know.
That's
Yeah,
awful.
I'll repent.
Good.
But yeah, no, I think that's great. And what I'm interested in, and again, going off and getting with the way the movie ends, it sets itself up for a sequel, going to the 199 locations or whatever the number was of like the places that there's no God here, right? And that's one of the cool scenes that you see there is like him writing on Henry's belly, there is no God here, or find the priest or whatever it was. all that stuff. I thought that was really effective there. But what are these other places, and are they all in Europe or are they in America?
Yeah, but again, like this is not a thing. Like he wasn't a part of like this team that did all this stuff.
Oh
So
no, but he did do a lot of exorcisms.
yes, 100%. Just did a lot of extras, and I just want to see some like real ones. Like you can allude to it, I guess, in the background that you're doing this stuff, but maybe let's get like a real story in there if there's some interesting ones.
Do we get a Catholic cinematic universe with some of the greatest exorcists and priests and popes, and they all have like an Avengers like team up movie to beat
Uh,
God?
I'd be actually very curious if there's if, if to beat God. Is that what you just said?
Or oh, geez, that's the devil taking over me.
Wow, that took me a second there.
Woo!
Wait.
I was just possessed. To beat
I
the
was,
devil.
yeah. You're gonna have to go to.
We got to stop
confession
talking
after
about this movie.
I will. What's funny is apparently a light flickered off and on in our place when I was watching the movie. So it
Oh
was a
boy.
little unsettling. But
Oh boy.
I would be interested if Father Gabriel and the Warrens like ever crossed over in real life, if they ever crossed paths. I'd be interested if that was actually a thing, because that would be really cool. Different movie, like I don't know if it's the same ownership, but that'd be really cool if we could get that.
Other unanswerable question: with all of this IP and reboots and everything happening, why don't we get, this is a more serious question, like a cinematic universe of the Bible? Of like
What do you
all
mean?
the angels and the story of like heaven and hell and battling and stuff. Like you get all this stuff about Zeus and all the other gods and everything like that. All these like Greek stories and Roman stories. Just tell some of the angels story, angels and demons.
You ever heard of Supernatural?
I've heard of it. Is that a TV show?
Yeah, that's but
Is that literally what it is?
no, it's not actually what you're talking about it, but they do deal with a lot of like devils and demons and then
But
saints.
there was a show, and I felt like this was a book here too, that was like it was modern angels and demons, like in a modern setting, and they were kind of fighting for heaven and hell. And it was a like a really popular book series, but I'm blanking on it
Well,
now.
the Lucifer does that. The
Oh, okay, but
the
that's not what I'm thinking of something else here.
no, of
I
course
don't know.
not. But
No.
Lucifer has like some. I think most of those angels' names are real, but it's like all of his siblings and stuff like that is like God's son, and God is depicted in it too. Actually, God is the Allstate guy, like the
Oh
original
yeah,
Allstate
yeah,
guy,
yeah.
who's also
Wait, he's the president of 24, and
uh well, I would say Major League.
yeah. Serrano. Yep, we're
Peter
on the same
Serrano.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Jeez, couldn't think of it. But
Mhm.
yeah, I want to make sure everybody knows that Mayhem is not God, because that would be weird.
He would have. He's got a great God voice. Maybe
Oh,
better
Peter
than
Serrano.
Morgan
Yeah.
Freeman's.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah.
That's strong. I like that.
Oh.
Who won the movie? Speaking of God.
Personally, someone like me who likes exorcism stories, I think
Hmm.
you won this one, because this was like, I thought it was well done. As much as there was some sensationalism to it, I thought that Father Gabriel, like Russell Crowe, his explanations were very interesting in every detail. I was really soaking it all in. I just hope that there was some truth in some of that shit, because I don't know what the fuck else there was.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm a fan of the exorcism stories too, so I'm right there with you. Priest being presented in a positive light. There's a lot of alliteration with the P's here today.
Mm.
But we talked about The Last of Us, and how the church group there, the group leader, the father, priest,
Oh
pastor, whatever,
yeah.
was a cannibal, right? And it's like, I think Rainn Wilson had even tweeted that the Dwight from The Office, we don't really see like positive depictions of priests anymore, and rightfully so. They've done a lot of dirt, particularly in this part of the country, right, over the years.
Mm.
But it's nice to see them get a dub every now and again.
Yeah, it's got to happen once in a while, you'd think.
And of course,
right?
God wins.
Oh, I don't know, man.
I know. Well, I got some work to make up here.
Yeah.
I got to get back in his good graces.
Maybe Wes is the one who lost this movie. Shit.
I'm losing it right now.
Oh boy.
But yeah, that'll do it for the Pope's Exorcist exit survey. Nick gave it an 84. I gave it an 80. That's good for an aggregate score of 82 on the CMM scale. So available on Amazon Prime for $19.99 or $24.99 if you want to buy it. But maybe you should hear us out, Amazon, and maybe make a little intermediary price to buy it after renting it. But
Yeah.
nevertheless, go check it out.